Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company on the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. And we are also a part of the Believe YouTube Podcast Network. Today is Franchise Tag Day. That's right, the deadline day. I hate how we have such this long period of time where there's franchise tagging to be made and things of that magnitude. And I, as of right now, have Adam Schefter's Twitter pulled up right now. So if Adam Schefter tweets something, I will keep refreshing it all throughout the show. If Adam Schefter tweets something about the franchise tag, we'll keep our eye on that. It has been reported that Trey Hendrickson of the Bengals, my top target on the free agent board, is not receiving a franchise tag. That's of no surprise. The cheap-ass Bengals, they don't know what they're doing. Now, the one name of note that I think everybody's keeping an eye on is Indianapolis' Alec Pierce. Because as I put when we went through the wide receiver boards, I didn't even do any research on Alec Pierce because I just assumed that Alec Pierce was either going to get a deal in Indianapolis or he was going to get tagged. And I think there's a sentiment that if the Colts don't get a deal done with Daniel Jones, then the Colts will in turn use the transition tag on Daniel Jones, so at least they have a quarterback, which would then make Alec Pierce a free agent, though I still think the Colts will do that old go out to the market, tell me what's there, and whatever's the top, I'll match it. I do not think Alec Pierce is leaving Indianapolis, but we will have to discuss Alec Pierce here on the program, as it does look like there's a chance Alec Pierce may actually become a free agent, and that is a target that I know you people out there just absolutely love. So we'll be keeping our eyes on that, and I just want everybody to know, as it is 2:02 p.m. Central Time, I do plan to be on the air live at 3 o'clock when the deadline comes. And when the deadline comes, we shall see who ends up getting tagged and who not, and we'll react to that as well. Plus, I have in front of me at about 2:30 today on the program, the Jared Stillman mock draft 1.0. I was thinking about doing this tomorrow. I actually did the mock draft yesterday, but you know what? I decided we'll get through the big stories today. We'll hit the mock draft, and then at 3 o'clock, we will have the official deadline as to who got tagged, who didn't get tagged. Breece Hall of the Jets got tagged, but I think we all knew he was going to get tagged. And I feel like everybody's turned their attention to Jeremiah Love anyway, so I don't see why that's that big of a deal. But what do I know? First, I want to tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They are the proud presenting sponsor of this program. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. Hiller is the best. They've been in business since 1990. They are family-owned and operated. 100% satisfaction. If happy you'll be, or the service is free. If a customer is not pleased with the work performed by Hiller, they will make it right. Learn more by visiting them online at happyhiller.com. Professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians who come into your home and leave it clean and better than they found it. Care is their core value. They believe that when they care about others, everybody wins, and they want to take care of the customer on every job, every time. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. Okay, so let's start on free agency. As far as who's going to be out there and who should we be talking about and who's going to make a difference for the Titans. And breaking news. This, according to Adam Schefter, quote, the Colts are placing the transition tag on quarterback Daniel Jones per sources. The transition tag is $37.833 million, more than $6 million cheaper than the franchise tag, but gives Jones the opportunity to sign an offer sheet with another team that Indianapolis would then have the rights to match. So I think Jones is going to play for $37 million this year. Could be wrong, but there it is. So right in, here we go. Right off the jump, Alec Pierce is a free agent. We'll get to Alec Pierce in just a second. So, I want to start with something that is truly driving me crazy, if I may. And this will get right into the Alec Pierce thing, but we now know Alec Pierce will be a free agent. We also now know that Trey Hendrickson will officially be a free agent, though I feel like we all kind of knew Trey Hendrickson was going to be a free agent anyways. And I have to ask a question. Why do Titan fans hate Trey Hendrickson so much? Why are Titans fans obsessed with these mediocre, truly nobodies as far as the NFL is concerned? Today, I was stunned when I saw that Tic Tac Titan got aboard the Trey Hendrickson train, and I was stunned because my sentiment is Titans Twitter hates Trey Hendrickson. And I say good that Tic Tac Titan gets behind it, because Justin Graver and Tic Tac Titan and everybody at A to Z Sports, they are rabid on Twitter. And I am telling you, the Titans are run by Twitter. People are like, I don't think Mike Borgonzi makes football decisions based on Twitter. Well, if that's the case, then you either think TD got it 100% wrong, which I've known TD for a long time. I don't think TD got it 100% wrong. Or Mike Borgonzi wanted to hire Matt Nagy, and for some reason, ownership thought, what about Robert Saleh? Which is what I think happened. And I think the reason that the ownership rather have Saleh than Nagy is because Twitter convinced them. So I know it's crazy to say, wow, your football team is making decisions off of Twitter. I'm telling you, the Titans are on Twitter too much. And it would be one thing if, like, they were on it, they saw it, and they dismissed it, but they don't. They buy into it. So when I saw Tic Tac Titan get on board about Trey Hendrickson, I kind of got excited. I'm like, oh, my God. You know, normally the way it works with me and Twitter is if I say the Titans should sign Tom Brady, then Twitter decides whatever I say, the opposite must be true. So now they don't want to sign Tom Brady. Case in point, Sam Darnold. I wanted to sign Sam Darnold. Everybody said he sucked. And so they've decided, no. I didn't want Cam Ward. So then they decided, yes. Twitter makes up their mind based upon the opposite of what I want. I wanted Arthur Smith to be the coach. Twitter's like, no. Arthur Smith's no good. Even though we saw Arthur Smith coach the Titans offense to the best offense they've ever had. So when I am banging the drum for Trey Hendrickson, I am then convinced that Twitter is going to take the opposite approach and say, no, Jared Stillman's so stupid. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And so then the Titans won't do it because I think they listen to Twitter too much. And when it comes to free agency, like, I am looking at a golden opportunity as far as the Titans are concerned. I actually kind of owe an apology to the Titans and to ownership to a certain extent, because apparently over the last I think it's 3 years, the Titans have spent 100% of the cap. So the cap to cash ratio for the Titans has been 100% over the last 3 years and 107% over the last 4 years. So if they are going to spend to the cap at 301.2 with their 167.6 in commitments, minus Ridley, who's going to be owed $3 million, that's 152, minus Snead, which I think you're only going to get 8.5 out of this because I think 7.5 is going to him on the injury guarantee. Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker are so fucking stupid. An injury guarantee in year 3? Idiots. So I think that'll take it to 160.58. So then take out 20.2 according to overthecap.com for the rookie class, and you're looking at $140 million in cash this year the Titans will be able to pay. Hold on. Wait a minute. We have more breaking news? This doesn't make any sense. Adam Schefter says that they cannot tag Alec Pierce But now everybody's telling me that Alec Pierce is getting the tag? So did Adam Schefter get it wrong? Whoa. Conflicting reporting here. Let's see. Jordan Schultz says, while the Daniel Jones tag would allow Alec Pierce to become free agent, my understanding both sides have been in active negotiations. Who's reporting that Pierce got the tag? Pierce can't get the tag. There's only one tag. So there's a franchise tag and a transition tag, and you can use one or the other, but you can't use both. In 2020, you could use both. And I thought the Titans were going to use the franchise tag on Derrick Henry and the transition tag on Jack Conklin. And then right before, because they had made progress on the CBA, right before the free agency window, they announced, no, you can only have one tag. Now, we had J-Rob on the show, and I asked J-Rob about that, and J-Rob said, no, I was only going to tag one guy. So that was the one time you could use both tags. You can only use one tag now. I mean, if Adam Schefter says that the tag is going to Daniel Jones, then that means the tag is going to Daniel Jones. Alec Pierce is not getting tagged. So Alec Pierce would be a free agent, unless I'm reading this wrong. Again, you can only YouTube chat, you guys are killing. You can only use one tag. In 2020, they thought you could use two, and then they changed the rules. You can only use one tag. Okay, back to what I was saying. I did the math this morning. If the Titans spend 100% of the cap, which, and I'm talking about not to the cap and, oh my God, they can't, but if they spend $301.2 million on payroll, which again, over the last 3 years, they've spent 100% of the cap. If they were to do that, they'd have $140.38 million to play with for this upcoming season. So I'm sorry. Like, why can't I have Trey Hendrickson? Why can't I have DJ Moore? Why can't I have these good players that are going to be expensive and you're going to overpay because your team stinks? And so the way you get a guy to play for you when your team's not very good is you pay him a bunch of money. Why do we hate these guys? And then when it comes to Hendrickson and DJ Moore, it's like all anybody wants to talk about is guys that, I'm sorry, but they're nobodies in the NFL. I kept saying Titans Twitter kept talking about John Franklin Meyers. And I had to be honest. And I follow the NFL a lot. I am a nationally syndicated radio host. I do a daily podcast on a team, and I talk all about the league, and you guys know I love the NFL. Who the fuck is John Franklin Meyers? Like, I had to look that up. I'm like, who is that? And then when it comes to receiver, I'm sitting here talking about DJ Moore, a very good receiver who's been very good for a long time, who still has juice in the tank. And everybody's telling me about $25 million for Wan'Dale Robinson? Wan'Dale Robinson. Again, Titans Twitter is obsessed with Wan'Dale Robinson and John Franklin Meyers. Well, you know, John Franklin Meyers played for Robert Saleh in New York, and Wan'Dale Robinson played for Brian Daboll in New York. Okay? You do know Robert Saleh's team in New York sucked, right? And you do know that Brian Daboll's team in New York also sucked. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, okay, what's going on here? Like, why are we not having conversations about Maxx Crosby? Why are we not having conversations about Trey Hendrickson? Why are we not having conversations about DJ Moore? Why are we not having conversations about Odafe Owe? Why are we not having conversations about the best players in free agency? And instead, we're having discussions about John Franklin Meyers. No team wins or loses because John Franklin Meyers is on their team. That kind of player you can get anywhere. Sebastian Joseph Day. You can't just go get a guy in Trey Hendrickson who sacks the quarterback 17 and a half times a season. You can't do it. I do not understand this obsession that Titan fans have with these average players in free agency. And it's like, no, we can't have the good players. Why can I not have the good players? I have $140.38 million to spend in free agency. That should get me a lot of good players. No. We have to get John Franklin Meyers, whoever the fuck that is. He played for Robert Saleh. Oh, great. I even looked it up today because I know if I use some sort of PFF ranking, people get mad, or if I use some sort of cumulative stat, people get mad, and everything else. So I looked it up today. I said, what does Madden Football say these guys are? Madden Football says John Franklin Meyers is an 80. Madden Football says Trey Hendrickson is a 90. I want to talk about adding a 90 player. And Titans Twitter wants to talk about adding an 80 player. Again, John Franklin Meyers. Who? Well, he looks a lot like Jeffrey Simmons. Okay. Like, and Alec Pierce looks like Dennis the Menace. That doesn't mean we can't get him. Let's go get Macaulay Culkin to play wide receiver. I just don't get it. The Titans have $140 million, according to my calculations, $140.38 to spend in free agency. And you want to talk about Wan'Dale Robinson, who's 5'8" and had one good season and only plays the slot? What? Wan'Dale Robinson. Again, he does play over the last 3 seasons, 48 out of 51 games. He had 1,000 yards last year, which is good. But he had 7 touchdowns on 140 targets in both 2024 and 2025 combined. So in each year, he had 140 targets. That's 280 targets over 2 years and has 7 touchdowns. And that's the guy everybody wants to pay $25 million to? Are you fucking kidding me? And this is what I've realized. I think I've talked about this a little bit. When I was in college, I became very competitive. I say this with all due respect to my high school, university school, USN. I love USN. But when I was in high school, we were in Division II. And my senior year was the year that we got moved into the smaller school division. But at the beginning, it was just everybody was in Division II. So it was us and MBA and Innsworth and JP2 and Brentwood Academy and Father Ryan and all the schools that cared about sports and us. We were kind of the Vanderbilt of Division II at that point in time. And we would always play those teams and always get our brains kicked in, and nobody cared. Like, there was no true competitive aspect at that school. It was all everybody's an individual. And I love that school. And I'm going to send my kid there if he gets in. But that I didn't know how to compete because I didn't learn. Then I went to college at Louisville, which was basically the wild, wild west when it came to sports. Where, I mean, we had prostitutes with the men's basketball team, and we had the football coach fucking a booster's wife, and we had all kinds of shit going on at that school. And those are only the things that people know about. I mean, there were a lot of things going on that people didn't know about, because the edict when I was at college at Louisville was win at all costs. And I became addicted to that competitive nature. And so that's kind of that second tier of life for me. And that's why I love shopping at Costco. I don't understand it. Sometimes I can just go up and down the aisle and not even buy anything. But then I look and I'm like, that printer is $100. And if I were to get a printer like this somewhere else, it would be $180. And I get really into it. Now, Lindsay's from Canada. She's a big Lululemon person. And when we first started dating, she was like, you need to stop buying your clothes at Costco. And I was like, but I love it. I mean, it's like $14 for a pair of joggers. I love it. Lulu, it's like $70. Why would I want to pay $70 when I can pay $17? And I get it. But sometimes I think Titan fans, when it comes to free agency, they take that mindset into free agency and they say, well, is Hendrickson really worth $35 million when we could get John Franklin Meyers at $12 million? Yes, because Trey Hendrickson is a much better fucking player. That's why. Well, but we'd have to pay him, and I know. But you're not trying to win free agency. It's not about the value. It's about going in and just getting players to help you win football games next year. And when you stink, you have to overpay. Just like the New England Patriots last year overpaid Milton Williams. And they overpaid Stephon Diggs. And Stephon Diggs was old. And they overpaid Harold Landry. And they overpaid Carlton Davis. And they overpaid Morgan Moses. Morgan Moses, Harold Landry, Stephon Diggs, they're all old pawpaws. And when it comes to these guys, I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, that's what you want to be. A team that's terrible, that drafted its quarterback, that hopes its quarterback can take the next step next year. So now let's surround that quarterback with good players, not value menu items, but good, actual, real NFL players. And then let's go try to win some football games. Like, that's what it is. And yet you want to sit here and tell me about John Franklin Meyers and Wan'Dale Robinson? Oh, it drives me fucking insane. You're not going to win with Scarbini players. And is there room for a couple of those guys? Yeah. Jalen Naylor is a wide receiver that I like, that I'd like to add. And again, I'll overpay Jalen Naylor a little bit because I think Jalen Naylor gets in there and does the dirty work, and I'm here for it. But I'm not sitting here saying, you know what you really need to take Cam Ward to the next level? Jalen Naylor. No, you need DJ Moore. That's who you need. So I don't know why you guys, and it's not all of you guys, but boy, it's Titan Twitter that's just like, oh, John Franklin Meyers and Wan'Dale Robinson. Those guys, they don't suck, but they're not Trey Hendrickson, which is unbelievable. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I do not understand what planet I am living on when it comes to this. I'd rather have Maxx Crosby than Trey Hendrickson discussion. And here's why I don't understand it. They are both pass rushers. I agree. Crosby is younger. I agree. But Maxx Crosby comes attached with a first-round pick, at least. If you are going to trade for Maxx Crosby, you're going to have to give up a first. Now, you're not going to give up the 4th overall pick. So my guess is the Raiders would want your first next year and probably your second this year. I'm not doing that when I could just go sign Trey Hendrickson and not have to give up any pick. Yeah, well, Trey Hendrickson's older. One guy's 28, one guy's 31. So I pulled it up, to just compare the two. Trey Hendrickson and Maxx Crosby. So since 2022, so this is the last 4 seasons, Crosby has played in 5 more games, which would make sense since Hendrickson missed 10 games last year with the core muscle surgery, which, again, he should be fine from. Now, the Pro Football Doc is going to join us here before free agency starts. We're going to talk to him about Hendrickson. We're going to talk to him about Jordan Tyson. We're going to talk to him about, but again, Crosby's played in more games. Crosby had an interception. Hendrickson didn't. Again, I'm not looking at a DB here. I'm looking at an edge rusher. Hendrickson had more sacks. Hendrickson, 47 sacks to Crosby's 44.5. Forced fumbles. Hendrickson, 9. Crosby, 7. Pro Bowls. 4 for Crosby. 3 for Hendrickson. He missed last year when he got hurt. And All-Pro awards, 1 for Trey, 1 for Maxx. They're basically identical as far as production is concerned over the last 4 years. Who was better last year according to PFF? The answer, Hendrickson, 82.9 compared to Crosby, 79.7. Again, splitting hairs. Now, Crosby was better against the run than Hendrickson, but again, what position does Trey Hendrickson really play? Sacker. What position does Maxx Crosby play? Sacker. So, again, almost identical. Age, Crosby's 28. Hendrickson's 31. So that does mean that Crosby has a couple more years down the road than Hendrickson. Expected salary. Right now, Crosby's on the books for $30.7 million in cash next year, and I think that Hendrickson would cost you at least $35 million. But again, would you rather pay $35 million and not give up a first-round draft choice? Or would you rather pay $30 million and give up a first-round draft choice? If it was just Crosby or Hendrickson and there was no draft pick compensation attached to it, I would pick Crosby. But because it is Crosby and draft pick compensation versus Hendrickson, this is not a difficult discussion for me. And yet, I think that 31 years old scares people. And I'm not totally sure why it scares everybody. I mean, some guys play till they're 35, 36 years old. And I don't expect that Trey Hendrickson will be a Tennessee Titan great 5 years from now. And I don't know when the window is supposed to open as far as the Titans are concerned. But when the window opens, Trey Hendrickson may not be a part of that. But just like the New England Patriots last year, if Cam Ward is as good as you people tell me he is, then shouldn't that window maybe open if you get some really good players around him in year two, the way it worked for Drake May? By this logic of Trey Hendrickson's too old, by this logic, New England would not have gone and gotten Harold Landry. They would not have gone and gotten Carlton Davis. They would not have gone and gotten Stephon Diggs. They would not have gone and gotten Morgan Moses, and they wouldn't have made the Super Bowl. So, to me, this is a no-brainer. Hendrickson. And again, you people tell me, John Franklin Meyers and Jeffrey Simmons, man, they could be a great duo. Better than Trey Hendrickson and Jeffrey Simmons? And what's crazy, again, is you've got $140 million in cash that you can spend this year. John Franklin Meyers isn't going to cost a bunch of money because he's a nobody. You can get them both. Hendrickson, John Franklin Meyers, Jermaine Johnson, Jeffrey Simmons. All right, guys, go get the quarterback. Going to drop 7, and then on offense, we're going to turn around and hand the ball to Jeremiah Love 25 times a game. What's wrong with that? And today, I had Justin Graver say, hey, it's not that I'm totally anti-Hendrickson, but when it comes to Hendrickson, I just think he's an older guy that doesn't fit the timeline. And I'm like, what timeline are we talking about? The timeline? Is that same made-up timeline that the Titans said last year? You know, we figured that it wouldn't be worth it to win 7 games with Sam Darnold at quarterback, so we just decided to draft Cam Ward because we're really more worried about 6 or 7 years down the road and not this upcoming season. Well, I'm worried about winning football games next year. Like, the Tennessee Titans need to win some football games next year. The Tennessee Titans need to be trying to win next year. And I was talking today with somebody in the local media, and this is where I think the Titans and the local media get it totally wrong. Everybody compares the Titans to what they just did. And I'm talking about locally, fans and local media. Everybody compares the Titans to what they just did. So, for instance, people think that Mike Borgonzi's a really good general manager, and he might be, but I don't. And I like Mike Borgonzi. Like, I think he's a straight shooter. I think he's a decent enough dude. I think he's way more competent than the guy he replaced. But he took over a 3-win football team, and they won 3 games. The media thinks Mike Borgonzi's really good because he's so much better or so much more competent, it feels like, than the guy he replaced. And they'll say the same things about Robert Saleh this year compared to Brian Callahan. Boy, I tell you, he's so much better than the other guy. That's how you can be a number one seed in the AFC playoffs, still be in first place and fire your general manager because you're comparing yourself to what you were last year. You never compared yourself when you decided to fire J-Rob. You never compared yourself to what you were before J-Rob got there. I did. I compare the Titans to the rest of the league. When it comes to the rest of the league, the goal is that your young quarterback starts to ascend by year 2. Most quarterbacks in the NFL that are worth a shit, with the exception of Drew Brees and Sam Darnold, make the playoffs by year 2. Caleb Williams made the playoffs in year 2. Drake May made the Super Bowl in year 2. Ben Roethlisberger made the Super Bowl. Tom Brady made the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow made the Super Bowl. Carson Wentz even. Now, he got injured, but he was a leading MVP candidate whose team went and made the Super Bowl. They were ascending with their teams by year 2. And that's when people believe in quarterbacks, when they win. So I don't understand this timeline talk of, well, we got to build this thing out over the long haul, and Trey Hendrickson only helps us win games now, and helping you win games now either could make you the surprise team like the Patriots this past year, or could help you develop your young quarterback so that everybody starts to believe in the young quarterback. Again, I use New England. This time last year, did anybody think New England was going to be in the Super Bowl? No. New England didn't even think New England was going to be in the Super Bowl. But that didn't stop them from getting Morgan Moses because they said, we need a right tackle for our young quarterback, Drake May, which is why they did it. Same with Stephon Diggs. We need a receiver for our young quarterback, Drake May. Well, I look at it like you need a defense. And in order to get a really good defense, you've got to have sackers. Jermaine Johnson, he's an okay sacker. But Hendrickson, he's an elite sacker. And all it will cost to get him is money. Like, that's all it will take. But what happens is the Titans will win 3 games this upcoming season because they'll go out and spend their money on Wan'Dale Robinson and John Franklin Meyers because Twitter told them that they have to spend their money on Wan'Dale Robinson and John Franklin Meyers. Maybe they'll win 5. They'll win 5 games or something like that. And people will say, well, I'm a little worried about Borgonzi. But they'll convince themselves, Robert Saleh, he's really, really good. He just needs his own team in there. And he needs, okay. Got it. Do you think it didn't matter that Chicago made the playoffs last year? Because I think it does. Like, I think that it's good for Chicago that they made the playoffs. When you build your football team, you don't know what's going to happen. The Seattle Seahawks did not look at their team and say, we're a Sam Darnold away from the Super Bowl. They said, that's an upgrade at quarterback. So I'm upgrading my team, and I'm trying to win. And apparently you guys think that John Franklin Meyers is going to be the way to get you to winning, and I don't get it. Or you want to deal a first-round pick for Maxx Crosby when you can just go sign Trey Hendrickson? And again, somebody's going to pay Trey Hendrickson. I don't know who it is. It should be you. But if you have the most money to spend, then why can't you just go get Trey Hendrickson? Again, you've got the most money, right? You've got the quarterback on a rookie deal. You've got the... What are we talking about here? So that's the other thing. Again, according to Adam Schefter, the Colts are placing the transition tag on quarterback Daniel Jones. So we'll kind of go over all of this whenever the tag deadline has come and gone, which is in about 30 minutes or so. I do want to say on the Alec Pierce front, because I know there are a lot of people that want to talk Alec Pierce. And so I say, let's get right to it. I did not do any work when it came to Alec Pierce on the free agent board because I just assumed that Alec Pierce was going to stay in Indianapolis. I still think Alec Pierce will stay in Indianapolis. My guess is the Colts are looking at this the opposite of the way that the Giants looked at it when it came to Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. They were trying to get a deal done with both of them. They got a deal done with Jones, so they signed Jones, and then they tagged Barkley. And in the end, that was a horrendous decision because the commitment that you have to make to the quarterback is so much more, even if you're getting him on somewhat of a deal. $40 million at the time was below the top of the market for a quarterback. So it yet was still so disastrous because after they did that deal with Daniel Jones, they realized they didn't want Daniel Jones anymore. And now they wanted to keep Saquon Barkley, but the money was being spent on Daniel Jones. I think that the Colts will give Alec Pierce whatever he wants. And so I think that may come in at like $28 million a season. And I think that's probably the number that they're going to look at, is they're going to say, hey, that's T. Higgins. And so I think it's going to be 28, 29, 30 million a year. Here's the work I did today on Alec Pierce if I were to put him on the board, because, hey, Alec Pierce is going to be on the board. Alec Pierce, over the last 3 years, had a composite PFF grade of 70.5. He also caught 39 passes on average over the last 3 years. 47 last year, 37 the year before that, 32 the year before that. And in fairness to him, the Colts quarterback situation has been a disaster. He had one drop last year, and he's got a 20-yard average depth of target. He is a deep threat. Each of the last 2 years, he's led the NFL in yards per reception. And this is the one that bothers me. His average yards per game was 50 last year in his best season. So he averaged 50 yards a game. I understand he's a deep threat, and I think deep threats are important. But 50 yards a game at $30 million, which, again, you've got to pay a suck tax on Alec Pierce if you sign him. $30 million on 50 yards a game. And I don't want to get everybody all mad, but it will. Cam Ward's strength is not throwing the deep ball. Let's just call it like it is. So Pierce doesn't really do it for me. You know what's crazy? Last year, Stephon Diggs, who I think is going to get cut in New England. And I think Stephon Diggs is a bad guy, and I wouldn't touch him. But just by comparison, Stephon Diggs had a PFF grade of 82.7. Pierce, 79.3. Pierce averaged 50 yards a game. Diggs, 59 yards a game. Pierce, 47 catches last year. Diggs, 85 catches. I just don't think Alec Pierce is that good. And I think that a similar player to him is Rashid Shaheed, and I think Shaheed is going to be in the $20 million a year range, and Pierce is going to be closer to $30 million. And I still don't think Pierce is getting to free agency. So that's my take on Alec Pierce. If you want to go give him $30 million a year and guarantee him 3 years, that's your business. But I think he's more of a tier 2 receiver than a tier 1 receiver. Again, to me, George Pickens is a tier 1 receiver who is volatile, and you got to be careful with him. I believe that Alec Pierce is, at best, a tier 2 receiver who is a very good deep threat. So, when it comes to the Titans, I wouldn't be that interested in him, but I know a lot of you all would be. And if they signed him, I wouldn't say that's a bad thing. I'd rather give him 30 than give Wan'Dale Robinson 25 for whatever that's worth. Okay. With that, it is time to get, and then we will get to your reaction and the tag once the deadline comes in 20 minutes. But it is time for the Jared Stillman mock draft 1.0. And you know what? I think I want a little music behind me. If I can get a little music behind me, if I can. Oh, how's that? Okay. Mock draft 1.0. Combine before I decide, hey, we're going to get into mock draft season. So let's just go right to the top. The Las Vegas Raiders on the clock. The Las Vegas Raiders take quarterback Fernando Mendoza out of Indiana. I don't think I need to discuss that one any further, do I? The New York Jets are now on the clock. I have the Jets going Arvell Reese out of Ohio State. Now, apparently, a lot of the talk and the betting favorite at number 2 overall is David Bailey, which I'm a little surprised by because Arvell Reese was almost flawless when it came to the combine. Bailey struggled with his change of directions, which has a lot of people worried about his bend. I think Reese is the more complete prospect. I think Bailey is the more sure prospect, given the fact that Bailey is for sure an edge rusher. But I'm going to go Arvell Reese at number 2 to the Jets. We have our first trade. So our first trade, the Cleveland Browns move up with the Arizona Cardinals at 3. And it's not about the Titans and it's not about the Giants, but it is about getting the top tackle on the board. Cleveland has a bunch of draft capital. They are replacing all 5 starters across their offensive line, and they go with Francis Mauigoa, the tackle out of Miami. He is the 3rd overall pick with our first trade to the Cleveland Browns. The Tennessee Titans are now on the clock. With the 4th overall pick, the Tennessee Titans select Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame. I personally would probably go Bailey over Love today, but I think they're going to go with Love. I think they think he's the best player in the draft. I think Twitter has given it the thumbs up, which means Amy will give it the thumbs up. And because of that, Jeremiah Love to the Titans with the 4th overall pick. The New York Giants, John Harbaugh is on the clock, and for the first time in 20 years, John Harbaugh calls the shots. I have the Giants going with Ruben Bain out of Miami. Again, Ruben Bain's big issue is his arm length. That's a measurable. Personnel people, generally speaking, care more about measurables. Coaches care more about tape. And I can see Harbaugh looking at Ruben Bain, knowing that they're going to have that Denard Wilson 3-4 defense, saying, let's put Bain on an edge. We've got Dexter Lawrence in the middle. We've got all those pass rushers. They're going to get rid of Kayvon Thibodeau. But we got Brian Burns. We got Abdul Carter. Think about that. The 3-4, they are going to roll with Bain on the line. They're going to have the 2 outside backers of Burns and Carter. I think they're in love with it. Ruben Bain at 5 to the New York Giants. Arizona at 6. I think they go Sonny Styles, the linebacker out of Ohio State. They pick up extra draft capital from Cleveland by moving back, which I think they desperately want to do. Arizona has a need everywhere. They have a need at quarterback. They have a need at running back. They have a need on the offensive line. They have a need on the defensive line. They have a need at linebacker. I think they go best player available here. They go with Sonny Styles with the 6th overall pick. Washington at 7, we have our second trade of the day. The LA Rams. Remember, the fuck them picks Rams? The LA Rams, I think, are going to move up. They've got 2 first-round picks. They've got a bunch of ammunition, and they love to be aggressive because they want Spencer Fano, the tackle out of Utah. I think that is going to be the second tackle off the board. And I think the Rams get a little nervous when they see teams like Kansas City getting ready to pick or a team like the Dolphins getting ready to pick. And so they say, let's get up ahead. Let's jump up 7 spots, and let's go with Spencer Fano with the 7th pick. Boy, how lucky are the Saints? The New Orleans Saints at 8 take David Bailey out of Texas Tech. They can't believe it. You know, again, Cam Jordan's old, DeMario Davis is old, so now it's time to get young. David Bailey at 8. It's a little surprising that he's fallen this far, and I was like, wait a minute, David Bailey at 8? But again, the draft's all about shockers. David Bailey at 8 to the Saints. The Chiefs hate this because the Chiefs would have loved to get one of the 2 tackles. The Chiefs would have loved to grab Jeremiah Love. The Chiefs would have loved to be able to get David Bailey to pair with Chris Jones. Carnell Tate, 4.5 speed, not good enough. not for Mahomes. The Kansas City Chiefs take Makai Lemon, the wide receiver out of Southern Cal. And the reason why I hear Makai Lemon pissed off a lot of teams at the draft, Kansas City likes the bad apples. They go with Makai Lemon, and he is the top receiver off the board with the 9th overall pick. The Bengals couldn't get to the podium fast enough. They go with Caleb Downs out of Ohio State. I know there's a little medical concern on Downs. The Bengals don't care. He's going to be their long-term replacement for Jesse Bates. They go with Caleb Downs at 10 to Cincinnati. Talk about a team that is desperate for everything, just like Arizona. The Miami Dolphins are on the clock at 11, and they think about Ty Simpson. But ultimately, they're going to punt on this season, and they're going to say, you know what? Let's get the receiver, Carnell Tate out of Ohio State. They don't need a burner. They've got Jalen Waddle. But Carnell Tate is going to be, he's going to profile as that number 2 receiver. He's a lot like the Green Bay guys, like a Devontae Adams type of guy, like a Romeo Doubs kind of guy. John Eric Sullivan, he's there. John Robinson is there. He's a lot like a Corey Davis type. Carnell Tate goes to the Miami Dolphins with the 11th overall pick. Akeem Mesidor from Miami goes to the Dallas Cowboys with the 12th overall pick. And I'm going to tell you something. I like Mesidor's game. Mesidor's a little bit older. But I think they look at Quinnen Williams, and they need a replacement for Micah Parsons. And I think that this would be a little too rich for most teams. But I think Jerry Jones is going to look at Akeem Mesidor and say, I want him. I want him. And he is going to take Akeem Mesidor at 12 to the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, Washington back on the clock here. They traded back with the Rams. They go with the best player on the board. That's Mansour Delaney, the corner out of LSU. I saw Lance Zierlein at NFL.com mock Delaney to the Titans at 4 yesterday in his mock draft. But it's a lot different to take a corner at 13 than it is at 4. Mansour Delaney, the top corner off the board from LSU to the Commanders at 13. No risk it, no biscuit for the Baltimore Ravens with the 14th overall pick. They usually don't pick this high. Baltimore takes Jordan Tyson, wide receiver out of Arizona State. Yes, he is an injury concern. So is their quarterback. They are going to look at this and say, we've got Zay Flowers, who we really like, but we need a number 1 receiver. And it's like Braden said on the show last week, if Jordan Tyson was healthy, he is the number 1 receiver in this draft. I think the Ravens will say Tate's off the board, Lemon's off the board. There's one other guy there in the first round. Let's take the risk at 14, because, again, they're not picking at 4. Let's take the risk at 14. Let's go Jordan Tyson to the Ravens with the 14th overall pick. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the clock at 15. They go Keldrick Falk, the edge rusher out of Auburn. And I think they go with Keldrick Falk because they think, hey, you know what? This is the kind of guy that we want to add to our group and that we think can be the next pass rusher, you know, like they had with JPP and like they had with Shaq Barrett and like they had with that group. They'll go with Falk. They'll put him in there right there with the 15th overall pick. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. I dropped my mouse, and I got to remember who I'm picking here. All right, who's on the clock? The Jets. They're back on the clock. Remember, the Jets have all those picks. And so the Jets are on the clock with the 16th overall pick. And the Jets go with Caleb Banks, the defensive lineman out of Florida. This pick actually comes from the Colts for Sauce Gardner. They went with Arvell Reese with their second pick. They go with Banks to replace Quinnen Williams with the 16th overall pick out of Florida. No, Josh, the board did not break. This time I dropped my little mouse. That's how I talk to you guys. Whoops. The Detroit Lions on the clock at 17. Remember, Detroit kind of sucked last year, which was a little surprising. Detroit needs a corner, and with that, they go with Avion Terrell, the corner out of Clemson, the younger brother of A.J. Terrell. Again, the top corner on the board, Mansour Delaney, is off. He goes to the Commanders. Avion Terrell at 17 goes to the Lions. We have a trade at 18. Minnesota trades back to Pittsburgh at 21. Pittsburgh waits. And they wait, and they wait, and finally, knowing that the Jets have another first-round pick, knowing that the way this league works, they could be in serious trouble if they don't just go get their quarterback now. The Steelers move up to 18, and they take Ty Simpson, the quarterback out of Alabama, with the 18th overall pick. By the way, Kenny Pickett vibes with the Steelers going with Ty Simpson. 19. Carolina, they need a bunch of stuff, but they really need an inside backer. C.J. Allen out of Georgia. They are waiting all night for C.J. Allen. They get C.J. Allen. They make the call. Jerry back on the clock at 20. The Cowboys are a little surprised that Dylan Thieneman, the safety out of Oregon, is still there with the 20th overall pick, and they scoop him up. So they go again. Akeem Mesidor, kind of their replacement for what they lost by trading away Micah Parsons. And then Dylan Thieneman is their pick at number 20. The Vikings on the clock. The Vikings go with the Monroe Freeling, the tackle out of Georgia. Brian O'Neill is set to be a free agent, and he is getting older. He has been their right tackle for years. I think the Vikings consider Ty Simpson, but they don't pull the trigger after what's happened with JJ. I think it will ultimately be Tua and JJ at quarterback in Minnesota, and they'll go with Monroe Freeling, who they will probably start off at guard in Minnesota, and then he'll ultimately replace Brian O'Neill, or maybe he replaces Brian O'Neill right away. Jim Harbaugh at 22 with the Chargers. We know how much they love the offensive line, and we know how bad their offensive line was last year, though a lot of that was because of injury. They will go with Olivagavea Ione out of Penn State. I heard Rich Eisen pronounce his name on the Combine, and he said, well, he goes by Vega. Vega Ione out of Penn State at 22 goes to Jim Harbaugh. They'll have a first-round left tackle, a first-round right tackle, and now a first-round guard. Philadelphia is on the clock at 23. Where does Howie Roseman go? Howie Roseman goes with Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon. Now, I don't know if Philadelphia is going to keep Dallas Goedert or not, but even if they keep Dallas Goedert for a year, Dallas Goedert is long in the tooth. And so what they will do is I believe they will go with Kenyon Sadiq. I think they're going to be playing a little bit less of their receivers, relying on them. And I think they're going to rely a little bit more on the tight ends. Kenyon Sadiq at 23 to Philadelphia. That brings the Cleveland Browns on the clock. So Cleveland was the threat when it came to Pittsburgh, who was at 21, of moving up for Ty Simpson. They can't take a quarterback now. At 24, Cleveland takes Denzel Boston, the wide receiver out of Washington. Again, Cleveland's one of those teams that needs everything. They went with Malioga at 3, and they go with Denzel Boston at 24. The Chicago Bears are now on the clock. The Bears are shocked that Peter Woods, the defensive lineman from Clemson, is still on the board with the 25th pick. A lot of people thought Peter Woods might be a top 5 pick going into the season. Chicago is more than thrilled to be able to get him at number 25. Buffalo trades back. This is our fourth trade of the night with the Houston Texans. Houston jumps San Francisco. They go from 28 to 26 to take Caden Proctor, the tackle out of Alabama. Why do they jump San Francisco? Because with Trent Williams' future up in the air, and we know Trent Williams is not a 5-year option anymore for the 49ers, they want to get ahead. They want to get Caden Proctor, and Caden Proctor will start off as the left guard for the Texans this year, but he will ultimately become their right tackle. He may be their right tackle anyways. They got to rebuild their offensive line. Caden Proctor at Alabama goes at 26 to the Texans. The 49ers need some pass rush. Yes, they have Nick Bosa, but they've got a lot of injuries. Cassius Howell, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M, goes to the 49ers with the 27th pick in the draft. Now, the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo, sitting here on the board, says, let's take best player available and let's take an edge rusher. Again, they've tried with older guys in the past, Von Miller, Joey Bosa, to complement, Greg Rousseau and some of the other guys they've got. TJ Parker is their choice out of Clemson, the edge rusher that they went to, and that is going to be what they go with, TJ Parker at 28 overall. The Rams are back on the clock with their second first-round pick. This one is theirs at 29. I just did not want to draft Jermod McCoy out of Tennessee. And it's not that I don't think that Jermod McCoy's any good. It's just that Jermod McCoy's been hurt, and he didn't do anything at the combine. Well, the Rams need help at corner. I mean, they picked up Emmanuel Forbes off the scrap heap last year because they just needed bodies. And so at 29, the Rams, looking at the value, again, it's an ACL. It's not some sort of decorative issue. They go with Jermod McCoy, the corner out of Tennessee, with the 29th overall pick. Denver at 30 is on the clock, and they go with Casey Concepcion, the wide receiver out of Texas A&M. And they do this because of who is behind them. They're like, you know what? Let's get our wide receiver now because there is a trade, but this trade comes ahead of draft night. The New England Patriots are slotted to pick 31st. The Philadelphia Eagles will be making that pick. New England will trade the 31st pick to Philadelphia in exchange for wide receiver A.J. Brown and both of Philadelphia's third-round picks. So the Eagles are back on the clock, and they take Zion Young, the edge rusher out of Missouri. And finally, the world champion Seattle Seahawks are on the clock. With the 32nd pick, Seattle selects Colton Hood, the corner out of Tennessee. He replaces Tariq Woolen as they look to continue their defensive dominance. And that right there is Jared Stillman's mock draft 1.0. Again, just to recap the mock draft, if you missed any of it, the mock draft has Fernando Mendoza at 1, Arvell Reese at 2, Francis Mabayoga at 3 to the Browns, Jeremiah Love at 4 to the Titans, Ruben Bain at 5 to the Giants, Sonny Styles at 6 to Arizona, Spencer Fanow to LA at 7. We'll have a trade there. David Bailey at 8 to the Saints, Mekhi Lemon at 9 to Kansas City, Caleb Downs at 10 to the Bengals, Carnell Tate at 11 to Miami, Akeem Mesidor at 12 to Dallas, Mansour Delaney at 13 to Washington, Jordan Tyson at 14 to the Ravens, Keldrick Falk at 15 to the Buccaneers, Caleb Banks at 16 to the Jets, Avion Terrell at 17 to Detroit, Ty Simpson in a trade. Pittsburgh moves up to 18 to take Ty Simpson, CJ Allen at 19 to the Carolina Panthers, Dylan Thieneman at safety to the Dallas Cowboys because Jerry wants him. Monroe Freeling at 21 goes to the Minnesota Vikings. Vega Ione goes to the Chargers, the guard out of Penn State at 22. Kenyon Sadiq at 23 to the Eagles. Denzel Boston at 24 to Cleveland. Peter Woods at 25 to Chicago. Caden Proctor at 26 to Houston. Cassius Howell at 27 to San Francisco. TJ Parker, 28 to Buffalo. Jermod McCoy at 29 to the Rams. Casey Concepcion at 30 to the Broncos. Zion Young at 31 to the Eagles. And Colton Hood at 32 to the Seahawks. And A.J. Brown is a New England Patriot. And that right there is the Jared Stillman mock draft 1.0. Okay, it has officially become the tag deadline. It has now come and gone. And so now we recap some of the news. However, that should be deciphered. Number one, Alec Pierce is a free agent. Why? Because the Indianapolis Colts have decided to transition tag Daniel Jones. George Pickens has been tagged, as we all know, by the Dallas Cowboys. Breece Hall has been tagged by the New York Jets. So for the most part, free agency kind of looks the way it did at the beginning. Trey Hendrickson not tagged and has now become an unrestricted free agent, and let everybody get their bidding in on Alec Pierce. The other bit of news, Adam Schefter reports that the Arizona Cardinals, according to sources, have informed quarterback Kyler Murray that they intend to release him on the first day of the league year next Wednesday, barring a trade between now and then. Arizona already owes Kyler $36.8 guaranteed in 26, and another 19.5 would have triggered on March 15th for 2027. Kyler Murray will now be moving on. I do feel the need to say this when it comes to Kyler Murray. Somebody is going to sign Kyler Murray because, as I said yesterday, Kyler Murray is one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. But at the same time, Kyler Murray sucks. And Kyler Murray has always sucked. I don't know if you consider a guy who plays 7 years with the team that drafted him and gave him $170 million a bust, but I do consider Kyler Murray a bust. Because when you draft a quarterback with the number 1 overall pick, you are envisioning that that quarterback will lead you to the promised land. You are looking at that quarterback, hiring a coach for him, building a team around him, and being very, very patient. And Kyler had some nice highlight plays here and there, but the truth is Kyler Murray did not have the measurables or the projection of a high-end NFL quarterback. Quite frankly, he didn't have the talent of a real number 1 pick. Arizona overdrafted Kyler Murray because he was the best quarterback in a bad quarterback draft. Does that sound familiar? This is what I really worry about. I looked it up the other day because Dane Brugler every April puts out his draft magazine with The Athletic. It's called The Beast. And he breaks down all the prospects. And he has a summary when it comes to those prospects. And he compares a lot of guys to other NFL guys. And I looked up who he compared Cam Ward to. And in his 2025 Beast, he compared Cam Ward to Kyler Murray. Again, not that their game is the same, but that their talent, the ability of what they could be, will end up being the same. And I said, okay, well, who does he compare the guys from last year to? He compared Caleb Williams to Patrick Mahomes. He compared Jaden Daniels to Lamar Jackson. And he compared Drake May to Justin Herbert. That is my biggest fear for the Titans. My biggest fear is that the exact path that the Arizona Cardinals lived for the last 7 years, a quarterback who was never good enough and was never going to be good enough to take them to the promised land, was their number 1 investment for over half a decade. Arizona took Kyler Murray number 1 in a loaded draft in 2019. Who knows what they could have gotten for that pick if they had said, Josh Rosen is going to be our quarterback, and we're going to trade the pick. And again, that's a draft where you could have gotten A.J. Brown at 51. I am scared to death that Cam Ward is limited from an ability standpoint and was overdrafted because it was a bad quarterback draft. And the Titans convinced themselves by listening to Twitter that the mystery box of imagine what Cam Ward could be, or we think he's Mahomes, will have them on this wild goose chase the same way Arizona was for 7 years with Kyler Murray. They're already on their second coach. Kyler Murray only got 2 coaches. Kyler Murray made it to 1 playoff game in 7 years and was awful in that playoff game. Just because you're a number 1 pick does not mean that all number 1 picks are built the same. Again, when Dane Brugler evaluated Cam Ward, he compared him to Kyler. Would Kyler Murray's career in Arizona be good enough if that's what Cam Ward becomes for the Titans? TDG, I'll put you in right now. Yes or no? You say, we know you don't like Cam. It's not that I don't like Cam. It's that I don't believe in Cam. So I'm going to ask you this question, TDG. Right now, would you accept Kyler Murray's career over the last 7 years for what he was with the Arizona Cardinals? Would you accept that if that's what Cam ends up being? And for me, the answer is hell no. I can go get a Kyler Murray caliber player every year. There's a guy available right now who's better than Kyler Murray. His name is Mac Jones in San Francisco. It is what it is. So with that, let's get to some of your reaction throughout today's program. I did not watch the chat during the mock draft, so I'll see, drop a comment what you think about the mock draft and everything else. MB says, the Colts are idiots. I would never tag Daniel Jones. Make him a reasonable take it or leave it offer. Who really wants him and who can afford him? See, here's the problem the Colts ran into. Because they traded for a corner, 2 first-round draft choices, they couldn't take a Ty Simpson. That guy will be gone. Now, I agree with you. If I'm the Colts, I may be the team that calls the Saints regarding Derek Carr if Daniel Jones goes and signs somewhere else. I may just wait out the clock on a guy like Tua or a guy like Kyler or somebody like that because I'm not convinced Daniel Jones is all that much better than those guys. But I also don't think that Alec Pierce is really that big of a deal, and I think you do need a quarterback. TDG says, I'd rather have Crosby with Jeff. Lord have mercy. Here's my question for everybody that rather have Crosby than Trey Hendrickson. And I can see you saying, hey, Crosby's younger. Crosby might make more money or might make less money than you'd have to pay Hendrickson. Are you willing to give up a first-round draft choice? Are you willing to give up next year's first for Maxx Crosby when you can sign Trey Hendrickson for absolutely nothing in return? That would be my question to you. As one person points out, you have to trade for Crosby. That's why Trey Hendrickson is the better option. And with that, I agree. I mean, again, if it was just Crosby straight up or Hendrickson straight up, I would take Crosby. But I have to trade it first, and I'm not interested in doing that. Richard says, overpaying is fine. You just need a good contract structure guy. Make sure Brinker earns some money. He overpaid just fixing the water faucets. I think Chad Brinker is, I don't know if you guys have experienced this. I have experienced this in my career. Have you guys ever experienced these worthless consultants where all of a sudden you get a call from management and it's like, we have signed Johnny Joe Consultantship. And Johnny Joe Consultants, they're going to come in here. They're going to meet with you guys, and you will just be wowed. Years ago at the radio station, they hired a consultant. When I got hired because the consultant that they hired, a guy named Scott Masteller, who runs a station in Philadelphia now, the guy who hired Colin Cowherd in Portland, Oregon, and then hired him to ESPN Radio, Scott Masteller was consulting with the radio station at 102.5 and recommended me. And so that's why I got hired. Well, then Scott Masteller got back in the game, and I guess they decided they needed a new consultant. So we hired this guy out of New York. And he comes in, and he's talking about his resume and everything else, and we all sit down with him. And in this meeting that we all had to sit down with him, me and Ian and Caroline, and I think Robbie and Joe and Michelle Knezovic at the time, she was in the meeting. This fucking guy fell asleep. He fell asleep. And he had a couple of tips and pointers and everything else. And that was when I realized how worthless consultants were consistently. That is Chad Brinker. He's a consultant. He has a pamphlet that he gives everybody, and he says that you go through and you look at everything and you say, okay, here, you know what? I really like this 8-step program. And then you do the 8-step program, you pay him, he leaves, and then nothing changes, and he's got his money, and you felt better about using a consultant. That's Brinker. If you expect Brinker to provide any meaningful change with the Titans, you just do not understand what Chad Brinker actually does or does not do. Back to your reaction. Boy, some people are mad about this. Kyler Murray reaction. One person says, first-time texter, could the Titans be selling Love to the Cardinals because they might have fallen in love with Reese or Bailey, and getting the Cardinals to go Love would guarantee that they get one of those two? Maybe. You know, again, I don't know how to read Robert Saleh yet. Like, I know how to read Mike Vrabel. I can tell you right now, all this talk about receivers in New England and cutting Stephon Diggs, who's due $22 million, it's not about the cash. Vrabel hates Stephon Diggs. That's what it's about, because I know Vrabel. But when it comes to this, I don't know how to read that. One guy says, I do agree we need to win games, but I will admit I want a good pick next year in the draft. I mean, can we live through another year where the season's over by week 2? Like, do we want to live through that? MB says, just like Cam, you don't judge a GM after one season. No, I agree. And I'm not saying they should fire Mike Borgonzi. I've never said that. Actually, I did. I said that they should clean house. And that was more about just cleaning house and being done with everything than it was a knock on Borgonzi. I think there's a chance Borgonzi ends up being a good general manager. I think Borgonzi, when I talk to him, I feel like he knows what he's doing. Certainly think he knows what he's doing better than Chad Brinker. Certainly can tell he knows what he's doing better than Rand Carthon. But in the NFL, you are what your record says you are. And the Titans were a 3-14 team. They had the number 1 pick. They used the number 1 pick, and they were 3-14. So I don't know how much money Mike Borgonzi got paid last year. I think it was $4 million. He got paid roughly $4 million to not improve the team by 1 victory. That's bad. That doesn't mean that that's going to be the end of the Mike Borgonzi saga, but it does mean that you're a 3-14 general manager. One person says, if it means getting Jeremiah Smith, hell yes, I want a top pick next year. Well, if that happens, then we're going to be having the talks about, is Cam the guy? And they will fire the general manager if you have a top pick in next year's draft. And then, well, what general manager are they going to get to come in and work with Robert Saleh? And you don't want that. You want to win some football games next year. Hear me out, everybody. You want to win some football games. It's best for stability in the organization. It's best for belief in the organization. It's best for Cam. It's best for the development of Cam. It's best for the teammates' belief in Cam. It's best for Cam's belief in Cam. It's best for the fan base's belief in Cam. You want to win some games. You want to win 9 games next year. That's what you want. And when you say things like, oh my God, I'll tell you, I just can't believe it. One person says he's better than Kyler just by not being 5'9". Kyler was doomed from the start. Now Cam, on the other hand, has a chance, but it seems the Titans fans are the only one who crap on the kid. It's weird. I don't think Titan fans crap on Cam. I think I'm the only person on the planet who craps on Cam. I mean, I went to the Super Bowl and it was like, oh my God, Cam's so good. And I'm like, based on what? Did you watch any of the games? And I think the answer for the most part was no. When it came to the Titans, Titan fans think Cam is the next Jesus Christ at quarterback. What are we talking about? And by the way, yes, Kyler's 5'9", and I think he's really closer to 5'8", because a couple years ago in Arizona at the Super Bowl, he and I got our credentials at the same time. He was one window over next to me. Like, there was like 4 lines or whatever, and Kyler was in the line next to me. And I'm like looking at Kyler getting his credential, and I'm like, this guy is as tall as I am. And I'm 5'8". So I think Kyler's actually closer to 5'8", and Cam's not that. Cam is undersized for a quarterback. And he has bad mechanics. And again, he makes some nice little backyard plays and voo, 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 and that just wows everybody on Twitter. All right, that's it for us here today on the program. Tomorrow, we got a lot going on as well. I do want to get into the Preds and the trade deadline discussion that I feel like has been coming up. We'll get into that tomorrow at some point. By the way, on Thursday, Robbie Stanley will join the program. I didn't even know if Robbie Stanley was allowed on the program, but he will join the program on Thursday ahead of the Preds trade deadline, plus what he thinks about all this Titans nonsense. And I also want to just throw out there that I think I haven't decided how I'm going to do this, because in the past, the Friday before free agency opens on Monday, I've always done the official Titans free agency plan. And I'm wondering, should we do that show on Sunday? And should we push back Friday's show and just react to the Predators trade deadline and then do the free agency plan on Sunday and drop that ahead of free agency opening up officially on Monday? That I haven't decided yet, but we'll work through all that. In the meantime, go ahead and give it a like. Give it a like, give it a subscribe, and we will see everybody tomorrow for sure at 2:00.